Good day, fellow readers, writers, and book lovers. My name is Megan J. Collins, and welcome to my channel. Clearly, you want to learn how to do bookbinding, which I understand. I personally fell in love with the art of it while I was taking a college class in the topic, and with that, I'm going to be able to show you a lot of the skills and techniques that I learned in my class. That way, you can do it yourself at home without having to pay money for a class. So, good job, YouTube University. I plan to make a lot more videos in the future teaching how to do bookbinding, not just the single stitch, which I've been teaching for a few weeks now, but later teaching croptic, Japanese, French. So if you're interested in any of that, you can always hit that subscribe button. That way you're notified whenever I post a video. While you're doing that, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like and a comment, that'd be great. I do read all the comments and I will respond to whatever you say. I love hearing you guys. If you have any questions about certain things that I did in this video, you can leave a comment and I will respond to you. In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a skip stitch or a dash stitch. Okay, this is what a dash stitch looks like. It clearly jumps over. And I'll be showing you how to make a knot stitch. Okay, this is what the knot notebook's gonna look like. You can see the little individual knots, and that's what we're gonna be making today. With all that being said, let's get into the video. To make a skip stitch and a single knot stitch, you're gonna need one cardboard piece of paper, whichever color you want, 6 blank pieces of paper, wax thread, 1 awl, a bookbinding needle, 2 binder clips, a ruler, and a pencil. You can also use a bone, but that part's not required. I forgot, you're also going to need a pair of scissors. You don't need to spend a fortune to get into the hobby of bookbinding. For me, myself, I found my starter kit on Amazon for about $10. I'll put a link to a bookbinding kit on Amazon for about $10. That way you can find one for a very reasonable price. I'm not sponsored by Amazon or anybody or any company, but I'll put a link in the description so you can find a kit. If you've already watched my video on how to do a loop stitch and a line stitch, you can skip to this timestamp just because I'm going to be going over like why we use wax thread and everything like that. So you can skip ahead to there. For all of you guys who stayed, let's get into why we use the materials that we do. When we're doing bookbinding, we always use wax thread, and the reason for that is because wax thread does not fray nearly as fast as embroidery thread or normal thread because there is wax on it. The reason why it doesn't fray is because the wax makes it very slippery. I don't know if you can see how like my hands can just easily glide down this rope, but it makes it very slippery, which when we're opening and closing our book, it makes it so the book can just slide on the wax thread instead of tugging it, making it fray even quicker. Versus if we have something like embroidery thread, where you can see that my hands aren't slipping on the thread nearly as much because there's not that built-in wax to make it very slippery. You can also see how if you do this, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little part of the thread that's sticking up because it is slowly getting worn in, and it is getting a lot more loose because of that nature. Whereas this one, if I do that, I can't pull it apart, I can't do anything like that. It is stuck like that, which means that it's even stronger than normal thread. However, there are pros and cons to having wax thread and to using embroidery thread. The main pro with wax thread is, like I said, it's not going to fray. However, the con is that since it is so slippery, it can make it very hard to make your stitches very tight, and it can make it hard to knot because the wax thread is just going to want to slip and slip and slip, which makes it hard to do a tight knot. Versus if you're doing embroidery thread, you're going to be able to get a really tight bookbinding where it's very secure and stuff, and you're going to be able to get a very tight knot because it's not slick. However, it is going to fray quicker. Another pro and con to embroidery thread is this wax thread is going to last for a very long time. However, if you're only making like some books for like a birthday party or something, I made these books for an escape room where the goal was it to only last one day. It wasn't supposed to last more than a day. I just used embroidery thread because it wasn't built to last for a very long time. So if you're just doing something like you're making little notebooks for a kid's birthday party or something and you have embroidery thread at home, just use the embroidery thread. You know it's not going to last past the birthday party, and you don't need to go out and spend more money to get some wax thread. with going over the needle and the wax thread, let's get into cutting our paper. Okay, like I said, we're going to need 6 pages of blank paper, and we're going to cut them in half, hamburger style, so not hot dog style. We're doing the shorter to the shorter, not the longer to the longer. So to start cutting our paper, we're going to measure it out. It is 11 inches, so we're going to put a little dot on the 5.5 mark right there, on the top and on the bottom. And then we are going to make a very, very soft line. That way we know where to cut. Just like that. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a very soft line. Once we have that line, we're going to use our binder clips and put them on the paper and close them. That way the paper is more secure, so it's not flying around doing weird things while we're cutting it. We're going to take a pair of scissors and we're just going to cut down that line. If you have like a slicer that can just cut through lots of papers, you can use that instead of the scissors. I don't have that slicer, but if you do, that would probably make an even cleaner cut for your bookbinding. But if you don't, that's fine. We can just do it the normal old-fashioned way. Okay, now we have 2 sets of 6 pages here and 6 pages here, which is good because when we're making a bookbinding, we really only want 12 pages in total. Because when we're folding this in half, it's going to be 12 pages. The reason being is we don't want a lot of pages because when we're piercing through the pages with our awl, if we have multiple pages, it's going to make it very difficult to pierce through and can really put a lot of strain on your wrists and hands and stuff. For that reason being, I personally do not recommend cutting more than 15 pages. Since we have those 6 pages done, we're also going to cut the cardboard paper also in half. Okay, there. Now we have 2 cardboard pieces of paper, one for one notebook and one for the other notebook. Okay, what you're going to do now is you're going to fold the notebooks in half. When folding your pieces of paper in half, this is where you can use the bone to make a cleaner edge. Let me just fold 2 normal pieces of paper so you can see the difference between the 2. Okay, so on this one I used the bone to make a cleaner edge, and this one I did not. That is what the difference looks like here. You can see that this is way more pushed together, while this has a lot more air in between. The fold on this one is way more crisp, while the fold on this one is definitely more rounded. So for that reason being, you don't need a bone when you're doing bookbinding, but if you want a more polished, tighter look for your book, you're going to want it because it will make the book look even better. For example, this one, I know I did not use the bone when making it, and you can see the big opening there, whereas this one I did use the bone, and you can see that it has a much more sharper, crisp cut to it. Whereas this one's more rounded and this one's a bit more cleaner. We're then going to go through all these pieces of paper. Okay, we have one book all the way folded. Now it's time to move on to folding the next book. Okay, this is where everybody that skipped ahead will be coming back to. We already pre-cut them and folded them, so if you don't have that done, you can do that to get ahead to where we are here. Just pause the video and then resume it. With that being said, let's get into using the awl for our bookbinding. What we're going to do is we're going to make a mark every 1/2 inch. I know last video I did it 1/2 inch and then 1 inch apart. The reason I'm doing it different than this one is so you can have more times to see what's happening with the stitching, so you can see how different it is. So we're just going to do a 1/2 inch for all of them this time. Okay, there you should have 10 marks down the notebook. That's going to be where you're going to pierce the notebook with your awl. I'm just going to make the marks on this one as well. That way it's already done for when we move on to the next category. Okay, the first one we're going to make is the skip stitch. It can also be called the dash stitch, but I always call it the skip stitch. We're going to take our binder clippers and we're going to hold the notebook in place. That way, while we're piercing it, the notebook does not go all over the place, because while we're piercing it, we want the holes to be in the exact same spot throughout the whole book. What you're going to do is you're going to take your awl and you're going to pierce the hole all the way through. You want to get it to the very end of the notebook. That way you have a hole that's really big. Okay, and we're just going to do that for all 10 of these holes. While you're piercing, make sure not to hit your fingers. Just don't put your fingers in the way of the needle. If you do that, you should be fine. You know, be smart, be aware of your surroundings. With that done, let's get into making our skip stitch. When making a notebook, I always make 3 widths of the notebook when using the thread. That way I have enough for both sides of the notebook and tying the knot afterwards. Okay, you're going to take your wax thread and your needle and you're going to thread it. If for some reason you're having trouble threading the needle, say for example your rope is really fray, let's make it a little fray so you can see what it looks like if it's fray. See, pretty frayed. If I try to thread it, it's gonna go squampus. It's not gonna thread very easily. What you can do to make this easier is, of course, you can always clip it down, but if you don't want to do that, you can also lick the thread. It does taste disgusting because it's wax, but you can lick it, that way it brings it all back together. Okay, I licked my thread. You're gonna put it into a point and it should be able to thread just as easy right again. So if you can't thread it, try licking the wax thread to make sure that you actually can do it. So for making the dash, you're going to start for this one at the very end, the end hole. You're going to bring it from the inside to the outside and make sure to leave a tail. You're then going to flip the notebook over and you're going to bring it from the outside to the inside down through the second hole. All the way down, just like that. And then we're going to tie this into a knot. Because it's wax thread, you're not going to get as easy of a really tight knot, and that's okay. Nobody expects you to get a really tight knot because the wax thread is so slippery. Okay, what you're going to do now is you're going to go, instead of going back through the second hole to make a single stitch, you're going to go through the third hole all the way down, just like that. Flip it over, and instead of going through the second hole to, you know, make the normal single stitch, you're actually going to go through the fourth hole. That's why this is a stitch, that's why this is a skip stitch or a dash stitch, because you are skipping over or dashing over. You're then going to flip over, go through the fifth hole all the way down, flip it over and go through the sixth hole. And I'm going to assume that you can see the pattern that we're going down, so you can do that for the rest of it. Okay, we're now at the very end. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie the knot for this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a secure one. You're going to take your needle through the inside of the previous one, back through, and make a knot. That way it's just secured in place, and then you can just keep tying knots. What I typically do is I typically make 3 knots, because the wax thread, since it's so slick, sometimes it can come undone. And then I'm going to make a snip on with your thread, and there you go. You have a dash stitch notebook. So that's what it should look like at the very end. Very different from the single stitch because there is an extra opening. Say for example you don't like this excess paper here at the end, like this one, you cannot see the paper. What you do is you simply cut this away, just the white paper, not the cardboard, and that way it's hidden underneath. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your binder clips. So you're just going to cut down just like that. See, and when we close it, you can't see the paper underneath anymore. Okay guys, now we are going to be making a knot stitch, which is definitely more difficult than a single line or a skip stitch. So this will be getting to the fun part. Okay, we're again gonna take our 3 widths wise thread, just like we did with all the other ones, except for the loop stitch. We're gonna bring it from the inside to the outside. just like that. And instead of going through the second hole, we're actually going to go through the very last hole. With that, we are going to quickly just tie the loose end up. Okay, there, I did about 4 or 5 knots just because I want to make sure that no matter what, this is not going to go through. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the second hole. Okay, we're going to bring it out on the inside, so the further away one, you're going to bring it all the way through, and you're going to bring it back down 1. Just like so. Makes a very tiny little knot right there. You're then going to bring it back and go through the third hole. Again, making sure to come out on the same exact side. If you want to make an even bigger knot, you can loop it under it 1 time. And then bring it back down, making sure to do it on the opposite side. And without fraying the rope. Bring it all the way down. So I'm just going to keep doing that, switching them, that way you can see the difference in it. So to do a single knot, bring it through without piercing the rope, up, and then just simply bring it down. Again, making sure not to pierce the rope. And down 1. Whereas if you want to do a double one, again, bring it up through the next hole, all the way. Then loop underneath it and bring it back down through the same hole, but on the other side that you came up earlier, all the way down. See how I got it where the knot was trying to tie up here, just try to slide the knot down and that should be able to fix it. So that is the difference between a double knot and a single knot. I'm not running out of thread here, but say for example, you don't have enough thread to finish it up. What you do is you simply cut how much thread you would need, and just, knot them together how you would knot, like if you were tying 2 ribbons together, knot, and you should be able to continue going through it. But you want to make sure to knot it close to here, that way the knot's going to be inside and not on the outside, because you don't want to make the outside look not as desirable. Okay, you should have gone down on your last hole now, so the outside is all done, and now you just need to finish knotting it. What I do to make it a bit more secure is I go through the knot 1 time, that way it's just like that, maybe even 2 times, and just so the knot is very close to the end. And then you're going to take your needle off your wax thread and you're just going to knot it 4 or 5 times to make sure it's very secure. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to make a small little snip. And there you have it. You have your not single bound notebook. And there you guys go. You officially now have finished a knot stitch and a dash stitch, which is something you did not know, hopefully, before this video. So now you know a little bit more on how to make some notebooks for fun, for your own amusement, or just because you're bored. But with that being said, if you really liked learning about bookbinding, you can always subscribe to my channel, Megan J. Collins, where you'll be able to learn more about bookbinding. I already have a previous video about how to make a loop stitch and a line stitch, so if you want to see those, you can go to that video. If you want to learn even more bookbinding stuff, like some more single stitch, crop stitch, French, Japanese, I will have lots more videos coming up in the future showing how to do bookbinding. So if you like that, please subscribe. And with that being said, please leave a like and comment, and I'll see you in the next one.